Alrighty, y'all. Welcome to the Stars with Eli Gomez. We're currently being drowned by rain as of this moment. We've had like 10 inches now in the last 2 days. Something about that. Something like that. I hadn't actually checked the actual numbers, but I think that was about what it was last time I looked. But, yeah. This is washing away all that damn pollen. I mean, good grief. It was just runny nose, itchy eyes, watery eyes. It was nasty all last week. And today was like the first day where I didn't have really bad allergies, so I'm like, praise the Lord. But yeah, I had posted a picture of all the pollen and like how like the pollen lines along the creek, that's right outside of the parking lot where I usually park, and my goodness, y'all, it was so gross. But it's all gone now, hallelujah. So yeah, let's go ahead and start talking about some things that I got coming up. So tomorrow I get to be interviewed as a business feature for the Echo, which is the University of Central Arkansas's campus newspaper. And I just have to say, y'all, it's truly an honor. And I'm truly grateful for all of my connections in the journalism arena, such as my friend Meredith, who got to be featured on a Patreon-only podcast, by the way. Definitely go check that out. And then I also like to especially mention Tori, who is the editor-in-chief. I actually ran into her into her today when I was out and about running errands. So yeah, she's graduating this year and she's great. Both of them have absolutely inspired me and to continue going along my writing and journalism journey and things. And they definitely were big supporters when I started doing articles on my website and things. And so yeah, I'm just really extremely grateful for both of them. And then also, I'm obviously going to thank Dylan, who's going to be interviewing me. He hasn't interviewed me yet, but I know it'll be great. But yeah, so I also have another thing going on tomorrow, which is my sophomore lecture that I have to give for my honors minor. I could literally talk about whatever I wanted as long as it showed that I had done some research. It's literally it. It's just like maybe a 15-minute lecture, whatever. And honestly, I could probably talk forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. It's hard to get me to shut up. I don't have a shut up button unless I'm really that tired. Or I have a migraine, and then I might shut up. But it just depends. And so, my lecture, obviously, is titled, What I Wish People Knew About Astrology. It's a very, very Eli thing to do. And essentially the abstract is debunking and busting through a lot of the harmful myths about astrology, such as it being a science. Yep, you heard that right. It is not a science. It's a humanity. And I just thought it was funny, and I chuckled a little bit when I saw that the professors labeled the genre for my topic, because I wasn't able to choose a genre. They had to choose a genre for me based off my abstract. And so they put it under pseudoscience. And I was like, y'all, maybe that means that my lecture will actually have some meaningful impact, Hopefully it doesn't fall on deaf ears, which I know it won't. Looking at my transits, I'm going to be stinging like a bee. But in a good way. It'll be in a good way. I'll be making some changes. I know that's right. And so, yeah, I also mentioned that, how popular astrology is just not it. It's not all it's not witchcraft, it's not the devil, it's not all that scary things that TikTok and Facebook make it out to be. It's also not all those glib things that TikTok and Facebook make it out to be, like being like, if you're a Cancer, you're gonna hate every Aries, Libra, or Capricorn. Woe is to all of them. Y'all, cut the crap. I know lots of Aries, Cancers, Libras, and Capricorns who get along with each other very well. And plus, that's also their sun sign, so they're just going to get their energy levels differently. It's just as simple as that. It's not communing with demons and devils, and it's not trying to make anything fit. It's purely observational, and you apply what you observe. It's pretty much what it is, and that's kind of what my lecture is on. And so I'm really excited to be able to talk about that in an academic setting, because this is the first time that anything of this topic of astrology being discussed in an academic lens, probably at the honors college, at least at UCA, has seen. And so I am really excited to be able to deliver that kind of groundbreaking lecture. It'll be something different. But yeah, I'm gonna actually see if I can record it. They might not let me do it, but if they do, I'll put it up in the Patreon and you all can watch it there. But yeah, so April's already off to a gnarly start for me. I've got a lease happening starting at the end of the month, and so I'm really excited to have my own place and be able to get a studio. By the way, I have plans for that, so there's that coming up, and I'll also be documenting the journey of that whole process, because this is the first time I'm actually moving into my own place, and so it'll be really neat, and I'll document that in the Patreon too, because I got some great supporters in there, and I just gotta say, I love every single one of y'all. When I walked into Patreon's website, my profile on Monday morning, and I saw conversations happening for the very first time on my page, that meant so much to me, because that means that I'm doing something right in this world. And thank you guys so very much for being amazing. And I do have a fun announcement in the patron shoutouts, so definitely don't fast forward through the patron shoutouts today, because there's a really juicy announcement. So there is that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and do the patron shoutouts. Alrighty, y'all. Patrons are those who support me monthly through Patreon. They get exclusive discounts to everything I do, and exclusive access to behind the scenes and bonus content that is significantly juicier than what I can put here on the open podcast or on my socials, since those are public. So we have great conversations in the chats and comment sections, as I kind of mentioned before, especially under some of the little posts that I do, because I document a lot of things, as well as just, being on college campus life, as an astrologer. It can be a wild ride. And so there was this one propaganda booth that was in the food court the other day, and I had taken a picture of some of the little pamphlets they gave me, and I put them in the Patreon. I was like, hey, just so y'all know, this is what happened today. Y'all might get a kick out of this. And oh man, we had some good laughs. We made each other cackle a couple times in the comment section. We just have a great time in there, and it's just a great, fun place to be. And find out more things like that by being a patron. I have a link to my Patreon below in the show notes, so if that's something you're interested in, definitely go journey over there. Now it's time to acknowledge and thank my current paying patrons. We got Lori, Jen, Nicole, Glenn, Matilda, another Nicole, Issy, Ayla, Loremaster 3000, and Denise. Thank you all so very much for supporting. I'm recording this on April 5th at 2 a.m. And I'm going to tell you, if we can get to 50 paying patrons by May 31st, so that's the end of May, I'm going to do a patron live prediction event that will be free for all patrons. And what it's going to be is this little Zoom session where we all kind of sit down and we all just kind of chit chat about, current events and whatever. And then I will open up the floor for what patrons want to see. So maybe they're wanting to look at a specific state. Maybe you're wanting to look at specific public figures. It would just be a very fun, great little experience. It'll be one of the first patron live events that I would ever have done. So that'll be really exciting. And so there's that. And I'll do that if we get to 50 paying patrons. I know we can do it. I see 222 on the clock right now as I'm saying this. So that's a sign, if I've ever seen one. So I know we can do it. We got this. All right, y'all, let's talk about my special guest for this week's episode. We got Cirbusova. She is the founder of Meadow Sweet Money LLC and is someone who holds a very special place in my heart. She's helped me ease my anxiety of getting my business up and running, as well as the financial side of things as well. She also helped me with my website, and just anytime I need any business advice, I just hit her up, and she's always there. She's somebody who I can trust and rely on to give me good, sound advice. She's never led me wrong, and so it's really exciting to finally have her on the podcast. And so that way I can now share her with you guys. So that way you all can see how wonderful she is and the services she provides as well. She really does live up to her phrase, which is shame-free money mentoring. She has a Patreon as well, which she continues that as well. She does little series, little video part series on there too. One of them is Money and Tarot. And I gotta say, that series is the best freaking mini series I've ever seen of almost anything I've ever seen on Patreon. Like, it is so well put together, and definitely go check out her Patreon just to watch that series. I am really wanting to just put in my recommendation out to y'all. Definitely go check that out. I also gotta say, I used to think money was evil. I used to think business was bad and, it was all just, greed and whatever. But that all changed when I started communicating with Mimi, when I discovered her and I had gotten her into my networking circle. She truly did help me heal my relationship with money. I feel like anyone with Capricorn Venuses can pretty much have the collective experience of being beat up, ran over, spat on, shaken, broken, pieced back together, dropped in the mud, all for us to be refined now more than ever when it comes to financial paradigms and thoughts. So, with that being said, here's our conversation about introduction to finance, banking, and just all those kinds of things that can be very daunting, but they don't have to be. So here she is. Here's Mimi Cirbusova. All right, y'all. I am here now with Mimi Cirbusova. She is the woman who has helped me literally form the foundations for my business and has helped me extremely well with healing my personal relationship with money and getting out of that scarcity mindset. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to talk to you. I'm always happy to talk to you.
Well, any conversation that we have together, it's just fantastic. So I always leave feeling better than when I came. So
same.
So what exactly is your thing? Like, what's your niche? What is it that you do that makes
what
you
is it they do?
What is it that makes you different from a lot of the other money mentors that are out there?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I have my own personal journey with figuring out money and kind of going, oh my God, there's this thing that affects all these aspects of my life, and I don't know how any of it works. So essentially, I had a moment where I realized, this was several years ago, and I went, oh my gosh, I'm in 5 figures of debt. I have no idea what to do about it, but I'm just done. Like, I'm done being scared. I'm done being afraid, and I'm going to figure this thing out, even though I had no idea where to begin. And most of the debt that I carried was from medical bills, several periods of unemployment while I was going through school. You have to do interning and all that stuff. So I was trying to kind of figure out, what should I do? And eventually, by July of 2020, I paid off over $20,000 of debt. So that was thank you. That was really an interesting thing. And in the process, I was sharing more and more about my journey, what I was learning, the things that I was discovering. And as I was sharing my own story, more and more folks, and I mostly did that through my Instagram, but folks were reaching out going, could you help me? And I have a big belief that if you're going to help people, you should actually know what you're talking about. And so I became a certified financial education instructor, and that training helped me to be able to give people the right information without stepping into lanes that are not necessarily appropriate, because there's lots of different professionals that do, money related things, but you want to make sure you're talking to the right person. So my job is essentially to help people figure out how to fix their finances without losing their humanity. My job really is about the education, soup to nuts education side of things, while also holding space for folks who are dealing with the challenges of all the mindsets and beliefs and the, things that we have kind of floating around from childhood that cause us to be really afraid of money. So I know what it's like to be a financial scaredy cat. I've been in that place myself, and I know what it's like to get out of that. So that's really what I'm here to do.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's exactly why I brought you on because your story is what really inspired me to get out of that whole scarcity mindset. Because I know both you and I both have Capricorn 10th house Venuses, so
Oh,
it's
yes.
and so that's where we really bond well. It's like because a lot of my experiences with finances and money are very similar to kind of ones that you and I have both talked about. And we relate well with that, and especially with now you have all those financial or so-called financial educators online being
Right.
like we all know Dave Ramsey and all of his
Well, and
stuff,
there's
but
more and more of those kinds of folks coming out, and I always say, it's you can get knowledge from anywhere, truly, and just be aware of what folks what their MO is. Like, what is their ultimate motive? What is driving them? What is their behind the scenes training? Like, what is it that they actually are doing? And most of the folks who are really good at what they do don't have the huge followings. They don't have millions of views because the fact of the matter is most of personal finance is kind of boring, to be honest. Like, good personal finance is kind of boring. And that shock value might get a lot of views, but it's not necessarily there to actually help you beyond just keeping your eyeballs on the screen.
yes, and I see that all the time because I'm a business student, right? Like I spend my whole life pretty much in the College of Business, and so it's really wild because the I originally didn't want to be a business major because I saw exactly what you are talking about. Is there's all this false marketing or just picture perfect. This is how you need to run your business. That's why I'm doing entrepreneurship as my major
Yes.
because that is where the creativity, that's where you break the bonds of kind of, the whole like corporate idea and you turn it on its head. And yes, it's one of the more minute majors. Like there's not as many people that do it, but exactly like what you just said, that's what is actually where all the really good stuff is because it teaches you how to hold your own authority over your finances instead of having them
Right.
rule over you.
Exactly. And that's really what I'm here to talk about more than anything is the fact that, like, money is just a vehicle to get you where you want to go. Money is not the end all be all. It is not the reason for existing. And more often than not, folks who come to me or talk very much about like, oh, I just feel like I just don't know what my money is doing and I don't know where it's going. And it's like, well, but you are the boss of your money. And so you have every right to tell it what to do. And let's make sure that the instructions you're giving it are clear and aligned with what your heart desires.
Right, because at the end of the day, money isn't its own consciousness. It doesn't have its own like free will.
Exactly.
It's
Right,
something that is,
exactly.
which is why it's so crucial to understand how you have control over where you put your numbers because those numbers are yours. Do you think that
Yeah,
your all your body lotions and self-care items are just going to go walk out the door one day? No, you have to use them, baby girl. Like
exactly.
it's you have complete control. And so how would you recommend someone who may be struggling, for the first time, maybe it's their first job, maybe they're just now learning the mechanics and the systems behind the monetary system, especially in the US.
Oh,
How would
especially here.
you advise them, maybe give them some support? Like what would you recommend to them?
Sure. I think the biggest place is to start with why. What is it that you ultimately want to get out of your relationship with money? And I say relationship in kind of a loose phrase because I don't have a better word for it. Because again, money is just, it's not a person that you can have a relationship with. It's a different thing.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that the way you interact with your money needs to come from a very deep, heart centered place. And I think a lot of times, and I see this over and over and over with folks who are like, well, my mom tells me that I need to, get my act together with my finances, or my, my boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whomever, they're so frustrated with me because I'm broke all the time. If you are coming to a place where you're trying to figure out money because someone else is putting pressure on you to figure it out, you're never going to get where you need to go or want to go. And that's okay. It's okay to admit, like, hey, this money thing is not my priority right now. And I talk often about the money mountain. So a lot of folks who are coming to me, they're at the base of the money mountain. They're trying to figure it out. And they go, why did it take me so long to get to this point? And I'm like, because you were climbing all these other mountains first, school and work and kids or whatever it is in their life, right? And I'm just so glad you're here now. So if you are at that point of saying, okay, I'm at the base of the money mountain, I'm here because I want to be here. I want to figure this money thing out. It's this fiery thing deep inside of me. The next step is to really take a moment to think about, how is money supporting the vision that you have for your life? What do you ultimately want? Many times when folks are struggling to figure out their finances, the thing that they need to do more than anything else is look at where their money is going and flowing. And if you do not do that, we can't figure out, where to go next, because you have to understand where it's flowing and going. And many times folks do that exercise. They go through, they look at where their money is going, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was spending so much money on this thing. Or I had no idea how much money I was actually spending on, impulse groceries, or on these little extra things that I pick up when I, go to go to Target, go to wherever, it doesn't matter, right? That is what I call regrettable and forgettable spending. Now, spending is just one teeny tiny piece of the puzzle. It's just one teeny tiny piece of the overall, money mountain. But figuring out where you want your money to be aligned when it comes to spending is one of the very best places to start. And not everybody is overspending. Some people are actually underspending because they're terrified to actually put money towards things that make them happy, right? And why do we work so flippin' hard if we're going to just put money away without a purpose, right? So that's really kind of the second step. So first figure out why, then figure out where your money's flowing and going and what you want it to be doing instead. And I think the next step is to figure out where the gaps are in your understanding about finances. There's great information out there. Some of it, yes, is crap. Some of it, yes, is good information that's doused in a lot of, patriarchal, like not the most healthy thing. But when you can find good information that comes from a very heart-centered place, and it is there out there, I promise. I'm one of the people out there trying to, put it together. But start small. I think too many folks are like, I've got to figure all of it out all at once. No, start small. Be like, hey, I heard somebody talking about a high yield savings account. What is that? Google it, look it up, figure out, what that is, and just start with little tiny bits of information. You do not have to figure out everything about money all in one night. You can't save an emergency fund in a day and a half. You can't save your entire retirement account in a day and a half. Why are you putting pressure on yourself to figure out everything you need to know about money overnight? We're going from, sitting on the couch to standing up, not sitting on the couch to running a 5K. First three things that I would say folks need to do.
Yeah, and that's something that's really important for people to realize, is that not everything has to happen by the snap of a finger.
Yes.
And we do live in a very fast-paced society that really prioritizes impulse buying, making quick decisions, because we live in a society that really is easy to get stirred up in that kind of fear and impulse.
Exactly.
And so when we kind of step back and realize, hey, maybe that's not exactly how, aligned with what is actually truthful and substantial, what can I do
Yeah.
in little ways, just throughout my days, throughout my
Yeah.
weeks, whatever your goal is and how long that you think that's going to take you. You don't have to do it all in just one whip stitch.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
okay to have 6 month long goals. It's really important to realize, even when it comes to the cycles of the moon doesn't do everything all in one day.
Right.
That would be
Exactly.
crazy, right? And so it usually takes
Yes.
about a good 6 months to really start seeing results from what the moon was doing 6 months ago.
Yeah. And
So
it's
it's
important to recognize too that like we're all swimming in very oppressive systems and structures. Like we're all doing the best we can in systems and structures that are, decades of bad policy, decades of people, leaders that are really out for themselves more than anybody else. So trying to be this perfect, oh, I'm so good with money, or, whatever it is we have in our mind of like, oh, this is what I think I have to be good with money. That's actually not true. I come from a philosophy of your well-being is more important than your well-doing. I think that's because I have so much background in like education and human services and nonprofit work. But I tell my folks all the time, like, you are not broken. You do not need to be fixed. Like, yeah, you need some skills, you need some knowledge, but if you're ready, willing, able, and want to, like, you can get really good with money on your terms. It doesn't have to look like anything that somebody else is doing. As long as it works for you and you're meeting your goals, we're in a good place.
Yeah, you brought up something that was very interesting, and it was kind of subtle, but I do want to bring this up because it's very true. Oftentimes, the stories that we are told to about money may not even be about money at all.
Often
It
not.
could really just be life philosophies. It could be all about something completely different, but because we attach our self-worth or our money or where we put our money and the stories we tell ourselves about it, it tends to get mixed into this big gobbledygook of cacophony BS. And
Yes.
so when we take the time to actually sit down and deal with the gobbledygook cacophony of BS, we are able to, piece out where those stories come from, why they may have served us in the past before, why they may not be serving us now, and what can I do now to claim authority over finances, over my self-worth, and create a better system for me for the future. So, kind of on those same lines, what would you say to people who may be at that stage? They've maybe had a couple jobs before, and now they kind of have a good idea of how money kind of works. How the
Mhm.
economy flows, and they're now at the point where they're like, okay, so I'm ready to claim my authority over my finances. Where do I start? Because there's a
Yeah,
lot.
there is a lot. I always go back to making sure that you are okay in times that you're not okay. So everybody talks about emergency funds, and I do believe very strongly in them. It's incredible the amount of peace that you can feel knowing that if something happens to you and you are either not able to come up with extra money or you are in a dire situation, that you have a little bit extra put away somewhere. Anyone who has enough money to just put even $5 a week, that is the place that you should start more than anything else, is having some kind of rainy day fund. I have clients who call it their oh shit fund. I have clients who call it, this is like if I get run over by a bus fund, whatever it is, you can call it what you want, but it's really a little bit of savings put aside that will help you in those moments where you're not okay, right? And everybody has different not okay points, right? So for one of my clients, her not okay point was if I have to take my dog to the vet and they say, okay, this is really, really bad, she's going to want to make sure that she can go to the ends of the earth for her dog and can cover any vet bill. Great, awesome. That's what her standard is. I have other folks who are like, you know what? I just want to be able, if I get laid off in, next year, that I can cover myself for 3 months. Okay, awesome. That's a goal to set, but you have to know what is going to be that thing where you're not okay. So for some folks, especially if you have a vehicle, maybe it's making sure that you have enough to cover a repair that's unexpected, right? Or even half of what a repair might be. So you might say, hey, I think if my car craps out on me, I'm going to have to cover $1,000. That feels overwhelming. I'm going to try to shoot for 500 because I can figure out how to pay off another 500 later if I had to. It's really about finding what your point is, but the only way to actually get to those big numbers is to start small. So you don't have to do it. I say all the time, like, if you're trying to save $1,000 in your emergency fund, you don't have to do $1,000 the next time you get paid. Put $25 away every week or every payday. And there are ways to automate that so that it's out of sight, out of mind, but you know that it's there for you if you needed it, right? So I am a big one on having some emergency funds, having some money aside if things are, go for the worst. Because again, life is life, and life tends to kind of kick us in the butt when we least expect it, right? I think the other thing to focus on if you're just kind of going, okay, I need to figure this out, is get an understanding of retirement that works for you. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to give a little caveat to this. A lot of folks have in their mind a definition of retirement that does not work for most people's lives, right? Many of us think of retirement as being like, okay, I'm going to be 65 or 67 or whatever, and I have to go like play on a golf course. I freaking hate golf. There's no, you could not pay me to go play golf, right? Especially when I'm older, right? But retirement can look like a lot of different things. For me, the definition of retirement is when my body is no longer able to produce, right, as a way to make income. My body is not able to make income for myself. My retirement account is there to make sure that my bills get paid and that my body is taken care of, right? I don't know exactly when that's going to be. I have a rough timeline, right? So sometime, hopefully, in my 60s. But I have just started very slowly learning, and, over time, especially, getting my certification, like learning how retirement investing works. And even if you have to start with, again, $5, $10, $25 a paycheck, you are doing much better than someone who waits until they're in their 40s or 50s. It's the magic of compound interest is mind-boggling, and retirement investing is about as exciting as watching paint dry. It really is not this like high stakes game. We all think of like the day traders and like, Wolf of Wall Street. That's not what retirement investing looks like at all, at all. So if you can focus on those two things, you are going to be so much further ahead than most people just learning how to save for, bad situations and having money put away when you are no longer physically able to take care of bringing in income.
Yeah, that's really great. I love that you mentioned that because, yeah, there's so many different methods of retirement funding that, a lot of people don't usually just tend to put all their eggs in one basket. And most of the time it's usually, you may have a 401k, but you may also take some Social Security. You may also take some other things too.
Exactly.
So it's not just one thing. And I think a lot of people, when they think, oh, I have to have one thing and one thing only, you're pigeonholing yourself and you're really kind of shooting yourself in the foot there.
Yeah.
When you have other methods too that might even work better together in tandem with other things as well. So, kind of moving on to a different question. Now, this is a personal question of mine because this is not only I have, but I know a lot of other people do too, especially to those who are new to banking, new to financing. So, would you recommend having different accounts at different banks? Or maybe having different funds at different banks?
It sort of depends on what your goals are. I would start with asking yourself, what is it about banking that I feel a little uneasy about, right? Maybe it's that you're like, hey, I'm nervous that if I have too much money in one account that it's going to be a problem. Of course, the FDIC or NCUA, depending, these are, basically laws that protect you by the federal government. If your bank goes belly up, it was something that came out of the Great Depression, but it guarantees that you get a certain amount of money back. Now, the likelihood that you're in that situation is probably pretty small, because it's quite a significant, it's like $250,000. So maybe don't keep $250,000 in cash just sitting in a checking account. Like, hey, but if you have that problem, that's a great problem to have, and I'm so happy for you. The majority of the people that I'm sure are listening right now are like, that's not remotely what I'm worried about. If you are concerned about banks because they have a tendency to do some pretty shady stuff, right? I'm very, very, very concerned about what's happening with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And I am just watching and paying attention, but I will say that if you are really concerned about banks, try a credit union. Their goal and their mission is really to meet you where you are. And they are ultimately, you are the shareholder, right? Because you are a member. Their job is to take care of you. The other thing that you might want to think about is, what kind of access do I need? So maybe it's that you need access to a checking account, a savings account, and then you need another savings account that's for your emergency fund. So you might keep that in a separate bank to just make it less tempting to pull out of. Yeah. So if your concern is that you are afraid, oh, I'm going to do that game where I put money in savings and then I'm going to take it right back out. Having a savings account in a separate bank, like a high yield savings account. So for instance, I have my checking account and several savings accounts through my credit union, but I also have an online bank that I use for my high yield savings. That's where I keep my emergency fund. That's where I keep some other, big, giant savings goals. And it, one, reduces the temptation to pull money out of those accounts and use it for frivolous things because it takes more time to transfer. I also find that it's a way for me to not be looking at my savings as part of my money coming in and out, right? It's a way to just kind of keep that buffer. So what I would do if you're trying to figure out, okay, what should I do? I got to figure out my accounts. Sit down and map it out. So say, okay, when my check gets deposited, I want it to go to this account, and then I'm going to transfer it to this. Actually sketch it out on a piece of paper, and it will help you so much to just see where the gaps are and where you need to maybe either open another account or close some accounts. Some people have way too many accounts, and it's overwhelming, and it's making it a lot harder. So just make sure that you are sitting down and really thinking through the flow of everything, and that will make a huge difference.
Yeah, that's great advice there, because a lot of times, I know people who are on both ends of the spectrum. They have 5,227 million different accounts, and then there's some that may just now be opening their first. So it's kind of wild to see, how there's two very different ends of the spectrum. But yeah, so with that being said, thank you so much for coming on. This was a really great conversation, and I'm sure that it will land on many, many really yearning to hear this advice ears. So how can people find you if they want to learn more about what you do? They might want to seek your services. Sure.
Everything that you could possibly want is through my website, meadowsweetmoney.com. And I also have a podcast that is free. Comes out almost weekly. I've got a few life things that have happened, but pretty much every Tuesday you can catch a new episode for free, and that's the Meadow Sweet Money podcast. The other place to find me, which I'm not on as often, is Instagram. So you can find me, of course, Meadow Sweet Money is the handle, and I'm also on Substack. So I've got lots of places that I'm at. I try to give good information out to folks, and just make people's lives easier and better.
Yeah, and you also have a Patreon too. We
I
talked
do.
before.
I have a Patreon. Yes, thank you. And I love my Patreon members. They're so amazing. And it's another way for me to just get more information out to those who are seeking it.
Yeah, so you're like a little content creating machine. You have
I
so
am.
much that you got. And so you will not be disappointed if, you know, if you're just looking for even just a little ounce of money advice. You know, you're gonna find it, especially on Substack. You got great stuff on Substack. And then also
Thank
definitely even
you.
if you're just a free member, go sign up for Mimi's Patreon too, because there's a lot of really good stuff in there. You also have a Money and Tarot series, which is my favorite. I
I
look
love
for it
it.
every time you put one out because it's just so good, you know, and
Thank
it kind of
you.
turns a lot of the things that not a lot of people think of what tarot can do, and then you kind of, you know, flip that on its head and you put, how can it help me with money? And I'm like, oh, that's a genius idea. But yeah, so with that being said, yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and I will have to
Thank
bring
you,
you on again
Eli.
sometime soon.
I would love to anytime.
All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much for listening this week. Had a great conversation with Mimi, and I'm definitely gonna have to have her back on. She's great. I could talk to her all frickin' day. But yeah, I know. I know. April is a hot mess for astrology. There is some freaking crazy, you know what, every single day just about. I know. We're gonna see some things that were definitely not on our bingo cards. Especially that last week. But look, are you gonna be part of the noise? Or are you gonna be an observer of the noise? Or are you going to do a little bit of both? Find that happy little balance instead of having to get into the black and white mindset of one and the other. That's something that we're going to have to really work on in 2025. Is getting out of those polar opposite mindsets where it has to be one or the other. There's no in between. There's no balance. It's either 100% this and 0% that, or vice versa. Instead of finding the flow. Because with Neptune and Aries, it sure as hell is going to feel like that balance is going to go 100% one direction to 0% the other, and vice versa very quickly. Because there's not as much Libra stuff happening right now in the skies to counteract that Aries. With that being said, thank y'all so much for listening, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.